These audio recordings reflect the private and intimate lives of women who are open to sharing their experiences on the Salon Tales platform. The women who are receiving service in the videos are not the same as the voice recording. The idea is to be entertained while learning a skilled trade. These are, to the speaker's knowledge, true and real experiences.
Home funerals, where you have the service in your home. The body, of course, is not interned at your home.
Now, do you have to have a permit for that?
You probably do in some cities. I think that's worth asking.
Yes.
Because that would be, if you don't live in a rural place.
Yes.
It's worth asking because I think it would freak people out.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with society. We don't talk about death in American society the way that we should. So people are afraid of it and they think that maybe these things are odd, but they're really not, because what we do is end-of-life doulas, also known as death doulas, which I prefer not to say that because I feel like some people might think that's too morbid.
Yes.
But, back in the day, community took care of their dead. It was a lot of the women that lived in the neighborhoods or the community or the villages that came and took care of the dead, who washed the bodies and dressed them and, set them up for display. And that's why the living room was once called the parlor.
The parlor.
And it still is in states like Hawaii.
Yes.
People call it the parlor because that was where the body was displayed, in the parlor. So we like to just give people information, give them death education, so they know that there's different options out there for them.
Okay. For someone who is at that point where their where their health is declining and they need to make decisions for, in the case that it declines to the point where they can't speak for themselves, they can't make decisions based on if they want to continue life or end life, what would you suggest? Or is there any options for them?
Yes, there are actually. What we do encourage people to do, right now, 27% of the population has one, but we're hoping more people get on board, but is to get an advance directive.
What is that?
Or a living will. And basically, it is one document. It is a document that lets doctors and other family know your wishes. You have to have a proxy. You have to have somebody that you appoint to be your proxy.
Okay.
And you let them know your wishes. You let them know that you don't want to be resuscitated in the event that you lose consciousness. We want to stress that, you let people know that you do not want to be force-fed or forced any liquids if you stop eating. If you stop eating or you stop drinking, usually the body is starting to die. But people think, oh, this person's not eating enough. They're starving to death. No, they're not. It's just the body is gotten to the point now where it doesn't need to eat. It starts to live off the reserves.
So this is part of the process.
Yes. So it's called VSED. If you do not want forced eating and drinking, you could put that in your advance directive.
Okay.
Just things like that. You put your wishes in. You do not want to. You do not want to go into a hospital if you don't need to. Some people are just ready, and a lot of times when people are ready to die, they will let you know. But the medical establishment will say no. It's a failure to the medical establishment if somebody dies in their care. Their end game is to keep you alive.
Like someone who's on life support, it'll be good for them to have that advance directive.
Yes, definitely. And you can have an advance directive from the time you were 18 on. People think this is something you need to get when you're older. You do not. No. If you have a kid who is into extreme sports, if you have, a child who's driving to college cross country for the first time, what if something happens to that child while they're on the road and this person can no longer speak for themselves? This gives parents the opportunity to step in and make those decisions that their child wanted.
Yes.
Or they wanted.
Now, does the patient, are they able to, on this advance directive, put their wishes without having a proxy, or do they have to have a proxy, someone else to speak for them?
You have to have a proxy.
Okay.
Yes. And so what happens is you would put your advance directive together, of course, while you can talk. You can't do it when you can't, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, You can put in even special instructions. If you get a document and it's one-sided and there's other things you want to list, you can put anything in your advance directive. You can put in, I want to wear that purple dress that Aunt Mavis gave me. I mean, even down to the littlest things.
Right.
Because this gives people an opportunity to make sure your wishes are carried out.
Yes.
You know, I think in death, a lot of times, especially with people who are ill, you don't get to make choices.
No.
You know, and you don't get to be in control. So this is one way that you can be in control of the way that you die.
Yes.
And we think that's important for people. We're trying to give people more control over the way that they go out of this world. And, you know, there's other options too, of course, with the advance directive. Say you are in a situation where you are very, very sick and you are suffering and you don't want to suffer, or your family doesn't want to see you suffer. You have to make sure that in that advance directive, if you're ready to end your life, there is something called MAID, which is medical aid in dying.
Okay.
It is not used often. It's something that has to be approved by 2 physicians. It is not legal in every state. It's legal in about 8 states now.
Okay.
It's you know, some people see it as, oh, you're killing somebody, or it's an assisted suicide. No, this is basically a way for someone to say, I do not want to suffer any longer, and I would like to leave.
And that's important because sometimes that person is suffering as well as the family. So to be able to have the option to say, hey, I don't choose to suffer for a certain amount of time, and I would not want my family to suffer for a certain amount of time. And I'm choosing to transition at this point.
Yes, and we feel like people should have the right to die with dignity.
Yes.
That is something medical aid in dying, paperwork and documents, of course, have to be signed by the person who approves them, the 2 physicians that approve them, and the family, but there are stipulations.
Okay.
You must be able to take the medication once it is mixed on your own.
Okay.
You cannot be a candidate for MAID if you are not of sound mind.
Okay.
You have to be in your right mind and completely cognizant to make this a thing. You can't, you know, have somebody who has dementia sign MAID paperwork. It's not going to work. It's too late.
Yeah.
You have to be of sound mind. Yes, you have to take the medication on your own, and it's important to know that people can opt out of that too. It's not like once you sign it, you got to go through with it.
Okay.
If you don't feel comfortable with it and you don't want to do it, then you don't have to. You're not forced to do it once you're signed and approved.
Okay. Have you heard of any cases where the person is no longer sound and they can't make that decision to say, I do not want to go through this anymore?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. And there are doulas who specialize in MAID. I don't specialize in it, but
Okay.
I've been educated on it.
Yes. Okay.
And also, too, like with suicide,
Yes.
you know, there's things that doulas are doing, trying to change the narrative of how death is talked about as well. Like, we don't say he committed suicide. We feel like there's too many religious connotations tied into the word commit.
Yes.
We don't believe that it's a selfish thing to do. It is the product of illness. When somebody takes their own life, that is the last thing
Yes.
that is happening.